Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a series that we're titling Running the Gauntlet. This is meant to be a bit of a talk show podcast style where we recap the games and give you an update on how the tournament is going so far. You can see the pool standings and also the team standings based off how they've played this week, who they played, and how they won. I'm joined this week by none other than SK Evaps, but I'm going to break the fourth wall for a second and tell you that we recorded this Thursday night, and I messed up my audio for the first 16 minutes before noticing it. And so I'm going to solo re-record these 16 minutes. Down below me is SK Evab's VTuber model, which will eventually come to life. I promise you'll be able to hear it. So first things first that I want us to talk about is the current team standings for each pool. So on the screen now, you actually see our standings. It's every team and their win record. Just so you know, if you see a red game under a team, that means they lost 0-2. An orange game is a 1-2 loss. A yellow is a 2-1 victory. And then green is a 2-0. Okay, just so you have point of reference for that. We still got a lot of game left. And all of these are pulled direct from the GCS League website. And then you also have your pool standings. Now, these pool standings are including the victory points, which we're using. I know there are a few spreadsheets around there that just take apart games or are using other things, but we're using our actual victory points. So your game record converts to a series record, which converts to points total, right? So like a 2-0 game total for your series win is 3 victory points, while like an 0-2 is 0 points. And using that, we're able to create a matrix of which teams are which. So if you're looking at your pool standings on the right, your top 4 teams and your teams listed in green are pretty solid. Right now, they're looking like pool favorites. They're very strong, and they are not at risk for elimination. Your yellow band are teams with like low-performing win records, neutral or losing, but are not in the elimination pool yet. And then your bottom 2 teams for each pool, highlighted in red, are up for elimination should the season end today, which it doesn't. We still have a lot of games to go. But this is just to remind you that there is indeed elimination in this series, that every pool will drop their 2 lowest performing teams, and then the 2 lowest under that will be sorted into losers bracket, starting the double elimination with a loss. Just so you know. All of that's also available in the rulebook at gcsleague.com. That is gcsleague.com. But without further ado, I'm going to solo commentate talking about these first 5 matches, because that's how far we got in those first 16 minutes. And then we'll get Evabs to jump in. You're going to see me swap to what I was wearing last night. And boy, my white ass needed to take a shower. I'm going to tell you that straight up. Who let me record in the dead of night? All right, without much further ado, first series was 07 versus AWB. I'm going to say this very openly. This is what I originally predicted the finals to be for the whole tournament. I've since become a group therapy supporter as the team to win it all. But 07 versus AWB have the 2 highest point rosters, strongest point rosters in Pool 1 that I think exist. And I believe on average, Pool 1 is stronger than Pool 2. I'll say that openly. And I mean, it was an absolute bloodbath to start. You have AWB with a GM jungle who almost hit Masters, a GM ADC, and then a Masters top laner or low or high diamond top laner. But of course, it's only ever balanced out by Wolf Prescue being in the mid. And then you have 07, a phenomenal starting roster. Vowels is arguably one of the strongest top laners in the whole tournament, especially in Pool 1. They have a high diamond mid laner, a diamond jungler, and then a Masters mid laner ADC flex with Rurika. And this series was just a bloodbath. I mean, they kind of proved that Huasal is not the child prodigy I thought that he was, because he got absolutely obliterated by Wolf Prescue in their Game 1 series, like, deleted from the game, absolutely useless. And we got to showcase why you shouldn't put MC for show on a Amumu. That guy can only play carry champions, guys. If you're on the Amumu, there's a famous clip we have of him missing Amumu Q1, Q2, and then flashing and missing Amumu R on a bot lane. And in that Amumu series, you could definitely see that it was down bad and horrendous for their team in total. And AWB were no slouches. I mean, Woof put up a phenomenal victor. That champion can make anyone look like they are a challenger. And Reborn Mountain is probably, I mean, it's easy to say the best jungler in the tournament. That player was solo stealing away the entire jungle from MC Fichot, who is a phenomenal jungler himself, and doing plays that rewarded his team like insanely. And because of that, I think at one point, even in Fasho's Gwyn game, which Fasho put up a 23-4, I think, Gwyn game, Reborn Mountain still owned all of the jungle. I think in the first cycle, actually took Fasho's bot and top side, completely shutting him out of the game. It's kind of a wonder he rebounded in the first place. But, I mean, overall, it was a 1-2, and it was kind of a grueling 1-2. Great to watch, phenomenal to watch, but in all games, either team could win it in all its total. I think that 07 has a lot that they need to practice as a team, and AWB kind of has people who more so know each other. But I think that they're going to be a ridiculously strong team to both of them and have a very strong chance of both showing up in finals. I wouldn't be surprised. Your next series is WoW versus SI, or Subtly Inting, Wizards of Wahoo versus Subtly Inting. I want to give a huge shout out to Subtly Inting's captain and Happier Cat, who is the captain of WoW. So David Edge, Subtly Inting's captain, and Happier Cat, captain of WoW. They've been around for a very long time, and we kind of wanted to pull out all the stops with this tournament, bring back everyone that we could think of. And so getting them back in made me very, very happy. David Edge has been a captain in almost everything I've done. I think he was in my second ever tournament, and then has been in every one since then. So shout out them. Two very strong rosters. I think Subtly Inting is still working out a player who dropped out. We're trying to get them a replacement and figure out when and where we can find an adequate replacement for them. But they're still pretty strong. I think that in Pool A, or Pool 1, they're among the weaker teams. But again, that's because I think the 8 out of the top 10 teams in the whole tournament are in Pool 1. We're a very strong pool. And WoW is among the contenders as well. I would say WoW is probably top 5. They have a roster that's well-rounded, practicing all the time, absolutely obliterating games. And I mean, we actually got to see that live. You have Happier Cat, who is, I think, like a high diamond peak against Pyrosis, multi-role Masters player, starting and being primarily a mid-Masters, and they leave up Happier Cat's Morgana. And she just runs rampant on the Rift, literally puts up a perfect game in their first series. Literally an 8-0 performance on the Morgana, showcasing like if you're gonna play these games, you're gonna have to kind of show up, flex out of your mind, and then find a way to shut down Happier Cat. I guess what I'm saying. Don't leave a one trick up. They have a crazy roster. Happier Cat is a very high-tier competitive player. She plays in a lot of comp leagues. Did crazy. They have a Masters top laner, a Masters jungler, and a Diamond, very talkative support in Deathmarch, who's coordinating a lot of these plays. And I think that's really what won them the series overall, is that they were just a phenomenal death ball of a team. They played very, very well. They synced all their CC. I mean, there's literally a clip where you're chaining a Mumu ult into Nico ult for when the Amumu ult runs out, and then MF full clears the whole enemy team. Because, like, how do you get out of the chain stun there? But that's not to say that Subtly Inting was a slouch team. You know, they're still working on things, like we were saying. And David Edge is meant to be the support for this team, but he started our tournament series as a jungler, and I think that he did a lot this series despite effectively schedule gap. His team was a very high point roster in comparison to the opponent team, but even then he did his absolute best, Viego into Jarvan, and kind of trying to do everything he can. I think he needs to be in a carry role for this team if he's not playing the support, but I think he did pretty phenomenally. Definitely one of the players that on that roster shouldn't be the highest KP, shouldn't be the one performing the best, because you have a Masters top laner and a Masters mid, but still did. So you got to give him credit there. Also, huge shout out to Domina Luminous. I said this in the recording. I feel the need to bring it back because I was humbled by Evaps. I thought Domina Luminous was a Nyla OTP, like could only play that champion at a high level. And according to him watching these games and then the games that we've watched since then, he actually has a lot of strength off that champion. Now, naturally, this series they didn't win out, but he was still a competitive bot lane. And I think his Lux was kind of crazy. I think if they play their AP bot laners, the Lux can just nuke people. So Domino Luminous, I didn't want my humbling to not make it in the video. I'm not talking bad. I want you to know I've opened my eyes to your skill now. I've gotten better, and I've done more, okay? But it was a 2-0 stomp, and it set WoW into a frenzy right now, just openly. Happier Cat has been talking insane shit to every team. only playing their highest point roster in all their or lowest point roster, excuse me, so their best lineup of 5 in all of their matches. I would not be surprised if this team gets humbled later openly. And then you have Group Therapy versus Poro Pounders, and these are two teams led by two of the best bot lane combos in the whole tournament. So this tournament is the first time that we've had absolutely monstrous ADC support combos, and both of them are where you want them to, or like the strongest of the strongest. So Poro Pounders is captained by different high masters, like 300, 400 LP masters ADC player, and then supported by Lvivsky or Levi, who is a multi-season grandmaster support playing like crazy champions. Probably the strongest individual bot lane in the entire tournament. And then the second strongest right under that is Group Therapy's captain STL Slayer and their support Chubby Dumpling. Now I think Group Therapy is probably the strongest team in the whole tournament, given not only do they have the second best bot lane, they then also have a Masters mid laner and I think a Masters jungler. I think Elias is a Masters jungler. But he's a really, really good player. But they took this into a 2-1, so a 3-game series, not even starting their best roster. I think that Ilias dropped a pentakill in this series, or maybe a quadra kill on a Lilia, so that's a champion to look out. But this was without STL or without Dumpling, so their bot lane was not the second strongest. And they took Poro Pounders to a 2-1. And a lot of that, I think, was their jungler and mid laner kind of enabling. Kessler has been around for a long time. We've always known he was a master level mid lane player because he's hit it multiple seasons. When he signed up for this one, he was like, no, guys, I'm an Emerald player. I haven't played for like 6 months. I promise. So we looked over his OP.GG. We were like, okay, you're obviously still a Masters player, even if you're hard stuck in Emerald right now. We rated him as a Masters player. And sure enough, after a week of fully committed to playing again, he's back in Masters playing mid lane and is like alive. And this series, you really got to see it. I mean, the Master Yi OTP for Poro Pounders got Master Yi, wasn't able to just absolutely destroy through them. They won that game, but Kessler came alive, put up 11-5. Cassiopeia, Ilias or Zhao Long in the game played a 15-3 Wukong. That champion's just busted right now. Like, I can't lie to you. And still chewed through, like, Different and Levi doing their absolute best, which it was high point roster versus high point roster, I think, because even though Different and Levi were in there, Poro Pounders had Brandis in. But, like, game 1, absolute smash. And then you load into game 2, where Different and Levi are still kind of cracking through. You'll see that Different on all of these series is a frag master. That guy's kind of a freak, both in my DMs and on the Rift. I won't even lie to you. If you can ban his Vayne, that's really the only ban you should put into him, because you could 5-ban ADCs, and the next ones are still going to be an absolute menace on the entire Rift. But that is the game that Zhalong Ilias put up a 27-4 Lilia. I don't even think that player's a Lilia OTP. And he's like, it's absolutely nuking. And then between him and I Fear Nobody later, like Lilia ran rampant this weekend as like an absolute carry. It was a shootout of a series. I think all of their games were over 70 kills. Like, total crazy bot lane performance between the both of them. But Poro Pounders do eke out the 2-1. I definitely think that if Group Therapy replays them with STL and Dumpling in the bot lane, which is the kind of the run back of the two pool situation, I think Group Therapy is going to run them for all their lunch money. I mean, you won't have a bot lane that lets that Poro Pounders bot lane scale so far ahead. They'll definitely be able to like nuke through them. But I guess only time will tell. We'll have to see it come back. And then you have Freaky Floppos versus Lacuna Matata. Evap's described this match as coughing baby versus dying coughing baby.
Yeah. This is kind of like coughing baby versus literally dying baby. These teams are both, in my opinion, are a little bit weak, but one team is significantly weaker than the other.
Because he believes that they're the two of the lowest point rosters. I do think that Freaky Floppos is probably the worst roster in the season. Still made up of a lot of strong players. But I think the biggest thing is Bronzino was on the 4th pick of the whole tournament, maybe 3rd, but I think 4th, and picked a diamond support player. Now, Pony is phenomenal in all regards. No disrespect. Pony, if you hear this, please don't beat me with La Chancla. But you kind of made it where in his draft, he then didn't get any Masters or GM players at all because he early picked a diamond, and then by the time it bounced back to him, he didn't have it. And I think the team is really suffering from that. Both of these series, the team, Freaky Flavos, put up like notoriously low KDAs. Like we're talking like a 1-8, 1-9 situation. Bird Person and Pony are the only ones on that team really doing everything that they can because they are the strongest and oriented to be the strongest. But Lacuna Matata just ate them alive. Owen had a crazy series playing Urgot, 12-1 in their first game. And I think Urgot is like a permaban champion right now. I haven't been looking at his win records, but in top lane, I've always hated the Urgot. And Owen's reinforcing why I would. Owen, the Grandmaster top laner, just showing that he is a carry for their team. Smash through in like a quick 0-2 stomp in both games. First one's 12-1. Second one, he's 8-3 or 6-3, I think, actually, on a Camille. Like, untouchable by the enemy team. And both of these rosters were without Lacuna, who should be, on paper, a better jungler than Noto by a pretty significant margin. He claims to be a D2 level. I don't necessarily know if that's true because I haven't seen it yet. That's all I'm saying, Lacuna. I haven't seen it yet. I wouldn't rate Lacuna Matata among the lowest, but I think that they're probably middle of the pack. I think that you got to have Freaky Floppas at the lowest, though. Freaky Floppas did vote kick Incry off their team due to some toxicity after their series and are rebounding with a better player with better vibes. So with hopes, I'm praying for you, Freaky Floppa. I really hope that you can get into your stride with a better player. Evap's also said in the other recording and in Discord chat that he's hoping for the 0-28 performance of Freaky Floppas. He wants them to win, but also says that they're going to go 0-28. So what can you do? And then the last series, or excuse me, not the last series. The last series we're covering in this recap segment before we cut to our other conversations was V8 versus Glue Factory. Now, I'm not biased, okay, guys? I have no biases about how this series went at all. Because, you know, like, I'm not like the captain of V8. But I will say, I think it's pretty sad that we lost 0-2. I think we definitely should have been able to take a game off them with the roster that we have. But I got to give a huge shout out to Damien Naruto. His Amumu first game full stalled the Masters first round, first pick jungler that is Touch Vigor. I mean, he had some questionable like level 3 ganks, 3 clamp into top lane that could have cost him the game, but it just didn't. It worked out and absolutely fragged on them. My team kind of got obliterated by a gold jungler. And I also want to give a shout out to Naki. Naki, a wonderful member of this community, finally getting put on a team that he can run rampant in mid lane. Guys, I'm telling you now, I think his Nico might be better than his Kiana. I don't think we always have to permaban his Kiana. His AP mid laners are kind of ridiculously strong. And then second game of this series, they kind of just smashed through him game 1 from what I'm told. The vibes were kind of off on our team because of how fast we lost. I won't even lie. I pulled in. I come in game 2. You sub in VLN. I'm doing what I can. Personality activated. I'm promising I'm going Ignite, Flash, set, first blooding, no matter what. And we had a bit of a draft issue. So I want to say this publicly. I want to address this publicly. By rules, if you draft a champion, you are forced to play it no matter what. And a lot of this is because we don't want to deal with the fact that in draft, like in this series, we used a draft client that if you timed out, it automatically randomly selected you a champion. Now, this did happen to both teams. Okay, we had a random selected Kale. They had a random selected Irelia. If you want, as 2 captains playing your game, if it happens to both teams, you can shake hands to undo it and say, what would you have picked? Let them pick it. If it even happens to one team and they ask, you can handshake it. I didn't allow it on this series just because I didn't want the first implementation of that to be for my team. But for future reference, if y'all want to, go ahead. And let me tell you, I'm happy that we didn't do it, though, because my set absolutely obliterated Tricycles Irelia, which is a champion I don't think he even plays. I did kind of play a crazy good early game. Shout out me. But then my team griefed a double kill to an Irelia on a red buff for no reason. They were just having fun, I suppose. And from there, it was a lot of issues of communication internally. I think what we wanted to do, how we wanted to play it out. And I, after laning phase, kind of fell into nothingness. Meanwhile, you have Damian Naruto on his real one trick, Wukong. When Wukong's really strong, playing crazy engage for his team. Not as high kill of a game as his Amumu game, but still. And you have Naki being an absolute menace. The Lissandra would just E into everyone and full kill my entire backline before I could ult because of the Entomb. And Funny Button and Sigil of Alethea are probably the most surprising bot lane combo. I don't think that they should have been as good as they were into our bot lane on paper. But somehow they were just menaces. And the CC combo that they were able to provide were like, it was just insane the damage that the team could put out with an MF on there. And Drysickle, if you didn't know how to play Irelia at the start of the game, by the end of it, you sure did. Because you were connecting some crazy plays. Undeniably, like I think I started you 0-2 in lane. Because he doesn't know the champion, ladies and gentlemen. I just want that on the record. Gets the double kill, snowballs it, and is just objectively stronger than me at the end of the game. And I mean, what can I say except we got washed and we're rebounding. Watch out for our Demon Arc. But those are all the games that we had to recap. We can just roll it into the next recording as we keep talking about the rest. Thank you guys. Have a great day.
I mean, yeah, the thing is, their like best roster isn't a lot better than their worst roster. They're a very just well-rounded team. They're not. Their best roster will probably stay everybody's best, but their worst roster will be everybody's worst.
I'll keep that in mind because I'm hoping that when it comes around, I can mail a specific type of package to Luton's house and make it where he can't load in on the roster for that game. Okay, and then as we start rounding out the week 1 or day 1 games, you have Nova Chrysalis versus Molly the Dog FC, which is just a crazy name, by the way, because it's so long. I'm gonna say this publicly and out loud, right? I think Molly the Dog FC has the ability to be a phenomenal team. It is a team of effectively like 6 or 7 like friends who all played together in our previous tournament and play together like pretty regularly and have the ability to like opt into a lot of effective skill. And I don't think we've seen their best roster really out there yet. I'm going to say also openly, I don't think there's ever a world they beat Nova Chrysalis with the roster that they put up that game. And I think overall they're like a higher tier team, maybe a dark horse candidate, but I'm not going to let them be like a high contender to win it altogether. I just know a lot of people have been saying they're awful, and I don't think they're that bad, actually. I think they're pretty good.
I think they're like a C tier team. I feel like just because they're friends doesn't mean that they're gonna perform. Like, look what happened with GSS. Is that what his last team?
Yeah. Godzilla Super Sprinters.
Yeah, he really lived up to that name, huh?
Yeah, he lacked his one trick when it was like 79% win rate and managed to lose games.
Yeah, I mean, just because they're friends doesn't mean they're gonna win. I do think they're kind of underrated right now, but I don't think they're that good.
Okay, this is another thing that I'm going to say before we have to glaze Nova Chrysalis for the 2-0. Le Gangplank, or Real Crimson Orange, whatever his name is right now. Big Booty Barrels. I think that's what it is. I'm going to pull up the screenshot and figure it out. I actually think he's a sleeper OP top laner in the draft. Not saying he's like the best, but I think pick value to performance, which is a metric I really care about, I think you'll see him do some pretty surprising upsets. And then his captain's a pretty high elo ADC. If they can figure out a way to, I don't know, maybe abuse Gangplank and you ult the other side of the map and help your bot lane get ahead, I think they can sneak out some wins and get some really good teams. If they don't end up winning or making playoffs, they'll be a crazy sour
underdog
team. Yeah. Like ruining your chances.
Yeah, their top laner is really good. He really impressed me with how he played into Banana, especially because Banana got onto his like 2 tricks every game.
Yeah, I don't know anything. I'm confused because there was a sad Banana, And then Banana joined, another person named Banana. And then a sad Banana changed their name to Banana.
Yeah.
And I don't know which one is which. I really don't.
The one on Hame's team is a sad banana.
What elo is he as a top laner? I know almost nothing about him as a player.
I think he's like a D2 Yorick Alawi 2 trick.
Yucky. I'm going to have to play into him one day, and that's really not going to be fun.
You guys might need to ban that out.
Unless I learn how to play Yorick, because I'm a split pusher only. Take note of that, everyone watching. I'm only playing split pushing champions. But yeah, I mean, it's a 2-0 stomp. They did absolutely crazy things on the Rift. Specifically, Billy, tag Billy. That guy crashed out on draft day because he signed up saying he was a Diamond 2 peaker. His sign up said that. And then when the people on cast said he's a high diamond jungler, he crashed out saying, high diamond, I'm so much better than high diamond. Which we did account for in his PV. We had looked at his peaks, but his own sign up said he was D2. But he was a freak on the Rift this game. I think he is in a position that if this roster has Billy, I would put them in top 3 teams to win the whole thing.
Yeah, I think Billy is a very, very good jungler. I think him and Gourmet Cookies are very, very solid, and I think they were both kind of undervalued. And Hame getting both of them is very, very impressive. I think if they have the billion Gourmet Cookies in every game, I think they have a very good chance into every single team in the tourney.
As long as they keep, well, I don't even want to say they're mental up. That would be tagging Hamea for their old things. But I think they're really, really strong. I'm excited to see how Biomatrix is tested against everyone, because that guy has been around forever. But this season we are so ADC heavy for the first time ever. Some of our highest elo players are just crazy elo bot lanes. And I need to know that Biomatrix won't just completely crumple under that pressure. And if he can withstand it, I think Nova Chrysalis is in a great state.
This is the first season where there's more than 10 ADCs in the pool.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. I'm going to give it to all the effort Touch Vigor put in to helping us secure signups. But we have I think they were our 3rd largest pool after routinely always being our smallest.
Top lane's their smallest now, yeah?
I think top lane, no, I think it's jungle, mid, ADC, top support. I think is biggest to smallest.
Fair enough, yeah. We never have any supports.
Yeah, a lot of people just end up getting relegated to absolute sadness. Okay, and then we have a game that we have to talk about some executive decisions before we talk about the games. Because I would like a public forum to say Mouth Breathers is not an OP team. I don't think you have to worry about Gumby. Pretty much every team has a variety of Masters players, if not also Grandmaster players, to contend against him. He's not an absolute freak. I've seen him be stonewalled by Emerald mid laners in custom games. I've actually lost over 150 LP playing with him in custom games. And it's not because I'm uncarryable. And for future reference, so everyone knows publicly, he is listed as a -20 PV player, which means that for any point value requirements in finals, should their team make finals, they will be forced to play an Iron player with Gumby if they want to play Gumby. Full stop in the PV required games. Technically, the games afterwards don't require that. The game 3 of a best of 3 and a game 4 and 5 of best of 5. But anything before that, he has to be with at least one Iron player. And if they want to run their absolute best roster, the second game, they have to run both Iron players to make it a PV effective trade. Just so that's on the record. Now we can talk about the games. Which is, they did kind of dominate a crazy stacked team.
One thing I'll say about this series is that why are we putting top tower in mid lane? I don't know.
I don't know either.
I feel like,
is he just the highest elo that started that day? And they were like, put our best player against him?
Yeah. But he changed back to top lane in game 2 and performed really well. They could have taken a game off of them. But Gumby played Zed late games that is just terrifying.
Yeah, Top Tower dropped a Penta this game with Darius. Like the allegations
Yeah,
of Top Tower being washed have to be false. But I don't know how you can have a 13-3 Darius dropping a pentakill and not win the game. Like I feel like there has to be something else at play that game specifically. Cuz like even Gumby himself is only 9-5 on the Zed. It's not like he was the second coming of Faker in the
it,
mid lane, you know what I mean?
it's just really hard to carry on Darius in a game like this. You have to play into champs that can kill you late game really easily, which makes it kind of rough, especially because there's not really anybody else who's really far ahead on this team.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a roster diff. I don't know why the Legend of the Leg didn't start Nico. Maybe he wasn't available. We did give them short notice on the
Yeah,
change.
I was told that he wasn't available
Uh,
on Saturday, so
but I think if Top Tower alone can drop a pentakill, I think if they have Nico to a Grandmaster mid laner to fight against the Challenger mid laner, this series is a complete different one. I don't think this is a 2-0 stomp.
yeah, I mean their top side is really strong. They have top tower, I Fear Nobody, and Nico. Three master peakers. I think they can definitely take some games off of really good teams.
Yeah, and this is arguably the best iteration of Mouth Breather's roster as well, with Xenix top, Ocean, Spectre, Jungle. That guy is the best PV to performance in the whole tournament, by the way. Gumby mid, and then Majin and Yeet Yote Yate bot lane. And so if they could contend with Nico against their best roster, I feel like there's a lot of counterplay to that team.
Yeah, I think in their rematch it will be a lot closer. I still think Math Beaters are a better team than them, but they are definitely good contenders for that super team.
Yeah, they feel really, Leg feels really coin flippy. Like not necessarily their plays, but like the day they load in. Because if they just coin flip heads, they'll like absolutely dominate, go 13-3 with the Darius top lane. In other games, you just don't get the same thing. I think they have the capacity to beat anyone else, but I don't think it's necessarily high. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Okay, and then to round out the Saturday games, we have the biggest upset I think GCS will ever have in its entire life, which is a 2-1 the World Orders versus Summit Admins. Not on the basis of the teams themselves. I think these teams are actually around even skill, but because none other than Taro Milk Tea Jin Jungle, L9 Jin Jungle on the Viego, stacks up against Riddy's Jungle on his Gwen, which I have been told many people are saying is Riddy's best champion right now. And in that game 3, jungle for jungle, band for band, Jin Jungle did win the game, which has to mean he's a better jungler, right? OTP for OTP. That's just how the math has to
true,
work.
real, true.
It's
Yeah,
we.
we
I'm sorry. It's just I had to give
poor
him that
Riddy,
shout
man.
out. You know, I have to give him that shout
Poor
out.
Riddy performed really well that game, and I mean, it just looked like the ball lane and top lane got really far behind.
It is so. I watched this game live as well, specifically the game 2 and the game 3. Game 2, Jin Jungle he would have done better for his team turning off his computer. I think his Rengar was just full stop, completely deleted, and I think Summit admins ran rampant on that map. I think there's a better world where if Riddy is jungle, they win it even harder. But like at the end of the day, a win's a win. But the game 3, the star of game 3 was AliXO top lane with the Cho'Gath. She was literally unkillable. And by the end of the game, when they were taking Nexus, she took up half the screen. Like she was the definition of what happens if you pick Cho'Gath and there isn't anyone who can just full stop blow you up because they're behind. She rolled the whole map. And while I love Baratel, I love you with my whole heart. I catch you live every time you stream. I have your notifications on. She put you in a montage that game, man. And I don't even think Cho'Gath versus Sion is a matchup where Sion gets completely abused either.
I mean, it's very heavily Cho'Gath favored. One thing I'll say about this series in particular is that they should have not won that game one. They cheesed that one out of nowhere.
You mean
Like,
specifically the World Order winning the game one?
yeah, game one, they ended it with like a double TP back door, and had anybody other than Veritel been there, they probably die there and lose the game.
I did not. That's the one game I did not get to see in its full. It's Hiroyuki, also known as Asian Jason. You'll hear me talk about him. Streamed these games, and when I tuned in, he was crashing out live at the end of this game, specifically citing how, quote, his quote, how do we have an 11-2 Syndra and we're losing this game? What did we mess up? And so I think that they are on the VOD review for this game, and I don't think a backdoor like that will almost ever be possible with them again.
Yeah, I mean, I also think if you put Riddy in jungle, it's a much cleaner series.
Yeah,
No hate to Bouncy Knight. That guy's very solid jungler, but I feel like Riddy, you have to put him jungle.
yeah, I think if you're drafting a GM and then you don't have any other, high elo, above masters or above players on summon admins, like I don't think they do. You can't afford, I think, to swap him off his main role. I think he's kind of he is your carry. You have to give him the resources.
Yeah.
And they didn't. And Jin Jungle absolutely fragged on you, Riddy. Riddy, if you're watching this, I hope he does it again because you said if I drafted you, you were gonna spin the wheel for every champion in every game that we played. All right, I'll never forgive you for that. Okay, we can move to Sunday games. If you can talk about this first one real quick. My cat desperately needs me to remove him from this room because he is clawing me. So I will take 2 seconds. But it's 07 versus WoW.
This series is kind of just substitute gap. O7 didn't have their two strongest players in Fisho and Erika Orrington. And WoW had their absolute strongest lineup in. I believe if they have Fisho and Eureka, this series is much closer. I'd even give the advantage to O7. I feel like WoW's win rate is kind of fake. They've had to play into substitute teams the entire week.
I
That's about it.
so I am an O7 supporter. Like I already said, they are my favorite team. Uh Man, they got absolutely obliterated. I don't know if you've seen the clips of this game. We were watching them. I was watching some of them before this. Um, but like the CC combo that came out of Hyper Dragon, Happier Cat, and then into Reaper Blades MF Ultimate, um, like even though they have the Braum, which Val's Braum isn't that bad. There's just nothing you can do when you're CC'd for like 7 seconds in one of the
Yeah.
highest damaging ultimates in the game. Um, and I think I think this team, specific Wizards of Wahoo, I do think the main roster for O7 beats them. I'll say that openly as a supporter. Their main roster though is working like a well-oiled machine, and I would even go so far as to say I do think that they're also in contention to win the whole tournament. They're practicing all the time.
Yeah.
They're scrimming all the
What
time, and you're seeing it.
the one thing I will say is they've played nobody from their B team. They've only played their A team this week. So if they continue doing this, there's a very good chance that they end up having to play their B team and they haven't acquired enough wins. They have end up in a lower seeding than they probably should.
Yeah, I don't. Maybe they need to be thinking about that as well. I think they did kind of. You never know who you're up against, so putting in your best roster against the O7, who is everyone was saying is a strong team, it's probably not that bad. But once you load in and you see its low point roster or high point roster, excuse me, I think you should be subbing out your best players game 2, game 3, to get those low elo players their games in. I 100% agree with you, especially when you have um, like an 0-7 Hui and 0-8 Amumu on the enemy team in game 2. Like you can afford to put in your golds.
Yeah,
But I mean,
I feel like
go ahead. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I feel like their B team is pretty weak as well. I do think they can still win with it, but off their A team, I think their B team will lose to most teams' weaker roster, besides like mouth breathers.
I I think they do have a really weak roster. I don't think it's as big of a fall off though. I think KibCat is a surprisingly useful player for his PV. I rep Pendelian because he's just been around for a long time. I let my love for the players bias my opinion of them. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think there's a chance we're gonna see them get humbled. Happier Cat's been talking mad shit all week, and I think they are in for a rude awakening on this upcoming weekend of matches.
Are you guys playing into them or?
We aren't. They have Nova Chrysalis first on Saturday.
Oh, yeah.
And I'll say it live because I think this comes out before the weekend of games. I'm calling a Nova Chrysalis 2-0 against WoW. Pretty hard stomp is my prediction.
I think if they play their main roster, they're just gonna obliterate. Well,
Yeah. I think Happier Catch champions into Hamea will not be as oppressive as they've been in these other games. I think this is effectively like the first time she will be against a high tier mid laner. Pyrosis should have been, but I don't know. I don't know what happened in that series. Pyrosis on Saturday was flashing inside of Morgana ult to stay inside of Morgana ult. I think he got psyoped.
yeah.
Okay, and then another series that I'm biased on is V8 versus AWB. This is a infamous series because of the FF that happened. I did not get to play at all. I've watched these games back with my team to try to go over them. But I want to say open as well, you know, tournament admin, tournament officiator things that I have to do here. The reason that the FF rule change happened was not because of Atomic Whisper Brigade altering or FFing their series. Okay, it happened to be the same day. After the first week of games, I had a lot of people ask me what the rules were, and so we, as the captains, which I opted out of the vote, but the captains voted. There was a tie in the vote, so we took it to Mod Chat, and then Mod Chat decided that we would not be allowing FFing. I'm sorry, I zoned out in the middle of my sentence, which is just on me.
PhD brain or what?
Yeah. It happens. We took a game off them though. We got a win, okay? And I was ecstatic because we did not put up our best players. We did not have ping spam at all this week. It was really just up to TV. We put in an even lower point roster because we put in Agu first and then he had to leave. And so we won game 2 with a ridiculously high point roster. Our low elo players are getting in and performing out of their mind. Let me say it openly. Geeky, one of the supports on our player, he's a gold player. Every other tournament, draft that guy. He is probably the best low elo player that you can draft onto your team, and it is purely because he plays engaged supports and is unafraid to just start a fight. Every other low elo that we play with or I have played with in the past, they wait to someone to tell them to, and you lose a lot of opportunities doing that. He's been absolutely crazy. He's amazing. I love him to death. I really do.
The one thing I will say about him is that occasionally the trigger finger does end up getting him killed, but I respect it. It's really clean usually.
Yeah, ultimately it is clean, or excuse me, not clean. It's not always the best, but I think it's better to have the skill and then get better at the game than get better at the game and not have the skill. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I don't think there was any chance that we were going to lose game 2 personally because they FF'd when we had an exposed Nexus on them. So, like, it was pretty much... But, I mean, it's still... On the games that we lost, it's just Reborn and a Loon dropping absolute, like, frag grenades on us. There was nothing really we could do to stop them from being oppressive threats. Like, I cannot stress this enough. Reborn Mountain does things in jungle that I don't even understand, and it always works out. So I just have to have faith that he operates on a level I'm not even close to. And same with the Loon. That player is the chainsaw of bot lanes right now, just openly.
Yeah, he's been performing really, really well.
I think
AWB's bot lane is also incredibly good.
Yeah,
I think Alin's been raising the skill level of his supports.
Yes, dude, that's exactly what I was about to say. I think he teamed up with June so well. I don't know. I think, you know, the Enchanter really helped out the Twitch game, and then also the Kaisa game, and enabled him to just like come alive even harder. And I have to imagine that that is I've played with a lot of supports before because I'm a Grandmaster ADC. Just listen to me and we're going to absolutely frag out. And they just do. They drop clip after clip after clip. Shout out to June as well, though, because she hit a phenomenal Renata play this game that I don't want to go unaddressed. Like a quad ult to then win the whole team fight. So June's playing out of her mind as well.
I mean, yeah, they're just both their supports. Also, Goku 2057, that guy, when he played support, didn't look bad. More of a engaged support, but he still works pretty well.
Yeah, that's another gold player who played jungle and fragged on Touch Vigor, by the way. I don't know what captain would first draft that player. TV is not what he got picked for.
Goku 2057 gapping that guy or what?
He's just putting him in the absolute hurt locker. I cannot lie. TV is going to be really mad when he watches this back. And then you have Group Therapy versus Freaky Floppas, another quick O2 that came through. And this was a series. Dumpling got to play this one. STL did not. And Dumpling played ADC. And the way that the games happened, you would have thought that Dumpling was Guma Yushi. Because I do think he just absolutely ate through the bot lanes, despite not being a primary ADC and not having a primary support as his support.
One thing I'll say is also Seagull dropped a nuke this series. You would not expect it from him mid lane as the Hecarim OTP.
I mean, at this point, is he a Hecarim OTP? I feel like he spends more time playing any other role than he does Hecarim in the jungle.
He's Emerald on Hecarim and nothing else.
He really is. I'm sorry. It's just funny to hear it because he really is only good at Hecarim, and for some reason no one plays him in jungle and he never gets Hecarim. I don't get it. I also want to give a shout out to Elias. I think that's their Discord name. Elias. Yeah, dude, that player definitely shaking up to be one of the best surprises of the draft. I mean, we put them pretty low point to be accurate with how their skill reflected, but also dropped a great game this series, especially on the Gwen, which I guess Gwen is just an OP champion right now. That jungler's awareness to set his bot lanes up is crazy good, especially on a team that's going to be carried by their bot lane for the rest of the tournament.
Yeah, I mean, this guy's been performing out of his mind, especially in these tourney games with Dumpling.
Yeah, I hope they continue to grow. I would love to see Dumpling be on a team that does well, because that guy, all he ever does is talk about how bad he is at the game, and STL did get him hard eliminated from the last tournament in 2 games. Never.
The 4-fun team.
Yeah, what was it? Side lane enjoyers or something? I don't know.
Side lane enjoyers.
Yeah, fastest elimination from a tournament we've ever had. Okay, that's enough glazing our friends and belittling Bronzina's Freaky Floppas. By the way, SK Evaps famously said he hopes Freaky Floppa goes 0-28. All right, moving on to the next game.
I gotta fight that one back. I think it's gonna happen, but I don't hope it happens. I hope they do well.
I hope they do as well. Pony is on a crazy streak of being jailed in this tournament. Okay. Leg versus Poro Pounders. On paper, who do you think is supposed to win this series?
Poro Pounders are a little bit better, but with the team that Leg threw out, I think they should have won 2-1.
Yeah, okay. I wanted to say, I thought you were going to agree with me when I said that, so I guess my setup isn't as good. I thought Poro Pounders were going to absolutely smash through the Legend of the Leg here, based purely on game 1. Like, loading in, I really didn't have any opinions about it. I thought they were relatively equal skill. Game 1, Different and Levi, Smolder Rumble bot lane, right? I don't think Smolder's ever supposed to beat any ADC early. But then Legend of the Leglocks Ziggs Maokai, the most uninteractive bot lane I think you could put together right now. And somehow Different made Smolder look like the best early game ADC that has ever existed in the video game to date.
That's the double GM bot lane gap right there.
Yeah, it is, knowledge gap, almost bordering on like a wallet gap. But they were doing crazy things. I was blowing out my voice box yelling over this game. And then you have the Yi OTP that is Akatsuki getting Master Yi and like actually cutting through the whole enemy team. It did not matter what Legend of the Leg did. They just draft gapped themselves. Like their best player Nico was on tank Jace and went 2-5 the whole series. Like against a goal. I think Slave Knight Kai's actually peaked Emerald mid laner. I think a GM should be smashing through him, even if he's on the Victor champ. So when I saw that, I was like, this is going to be the quickest 2-0 of my life. And then I had to immediately apologize to Nico live commentating. I was not familiar with his game, and I was not familiar with I Fear Nobody's game because the Skarner game 1 was bordered on being as useless as you can be as a CC bot. Still useful, but that's because of the CC they do. They show up the next game, and Nico is a whole different player on the Syndra. Like, actually does just not allow the Aurelian Soul to do anything, was at every objective, showed up everywhere to help shut out the opponent team. But I Fear Nobody on the Lilia just burned through multi-kills, and then top tower just drops the most perfect, beautiful set game of my entire life. That guy is a better set player than I'll ever be. He's a god amongst men. And after that game, I was like, okay, actually, the Legend of the Leg are going to reverse sweep this, absolutely obliterate this team. I never should have doubted them. And then you go into game 3, and it's just, they were just never winning at any point, anywhere. You have a crazy role swap where ISO is on Vlad top, and you have Ornn mid, and somehow the Ornn mid effectively countered Victor scaling, and then it was just game over. I don't know how they took their momentum from last game and then put I Fear Nobody back on a tank jungler. I think that team, if they put I Fear Nobody on a carry jungler, smashes Poro Pounders.
I think this team heavily relies on top jungle. If Fear and Top Tower don't have like an incredible series, I think they're like if they have a good game, the team performs well around them. If they have a bad game, they just get obliterated. And the 2 games they lost, Top Tower and Fear just did not have the greatest games.
Yeah, you have to give I Fear Nobody more agency, I think. I don't think that player should be playing like an enabler champion. I think that they need to be the one being enabled because they have the skill. I think the Lilia showed it. And then on the flip side, Different and Levy just showed that they can just troll away games. They're not like suddenly impervious as a GM bot lane together. Like they still fragged out even in the game that they lost, but they were up against a gold ADC, I want to say, and an emerald support, and went from hard smashing through them with the worst early game bot lane you could put together to just being useless by the end of the game, that game 2. And they brought it back in game 3, but still there's cracks showing through on that team,
Yeah.
But this is just a reminder to ban a Master Yi OTP's Master Yi, and I don't think that ever should have made it through draft. I'm sorry, I have the hiccups. Whew. That's all I have to say. That Different and Levi are also very cute and sweet, and they message me filthy messages all the time. I'm married, guys. I don't want it. And then we have, for the second set of the series, Nova Chrysalis versus Subtly Inting. I think this is the start of the 4 p.m. matches. This was the draft gap, or the schedule gap game, right? Because Nova Chrysalis shows up, crushes game 1, and then Billy disappears.
I think this team heavily relies on Billy. If Billy's there, they're just significantly worse.
Do you know why he left?
SDC. He had to do Gauntlet over there.
Wow, so he's a fake friend, bro. Ditches them to be in a different tournament while games are happening. I was also surprised, like personally, that Nova Chrysalis still lost this. I think this is one of the worst rosters that David Edge's team, Subtly Inting, can put up. Like, just having Tiger 58 on the team. No offense to Tiger 58, he's a silver player, and then he's against like a diamond ADC and like I think Swoosh World is a gold sport. I actually take it all back. I think that's a neutral lane. But they still
They got double schedule gap. I think Gourmet Cookies will also have to leave for either redacted tournament or SDC.
Yeah, schedule gap is so sad. I mean, David Edge does show off here that he is still a jungle player and can be a jungle player when he needs to be. Specifically playing the Viego and the Zac. I think his Poppy was a bit underwhelming, especially in comparison to Billy in that game. But then the Viego is like prime touch vigor in the jungle, 12-1. And then the Zac, he did the David Edge classic, by the way. In this game, he would walk to bot lane bush and sit there for minutes on end and get a successful gank out of it. It's ridiculous that it works every time.
What a rat.
Which I guess if you,
it's a signature right there.
If you wait long enough, does it always work? I don't know. It's if you're playing against David Edge, that guy sits in bottom bushes the entire game. Just know it ahead of time.
Be aware that he will never gank top lane, so if you're the enemy top laner, just perma push. Kind of abuse.
It's your only win condition is through top there, or to play like the most disengaged bot lane, because he will sit there and soak XP. There's a clip. I just have to talk about it every time he plays the Zac. I have to bring up the game where in a previous tournament he sat in a bot lane bush waiting for a gank so long that his bot lane went from having a level lead to a 1 level disadvantage from him soaking XP against the opponent laners.
That was what? That was the tournament that I won, yeah?
Yeah, I think that was Walla Walla Weasel Whackers.
Yeah.
But he just sat there the whole game, and he continues to do it. Overall, I also think, admittedly, Hamea had a really poor performance this series. If you're Nova Chrysalis and you're listening, never let Hamea be on Galio, and never first pick Vayne. First picking your ADC just cooks your draft, and Hamea is a player that if you don't believe he can carry, if he feels the team saying that, he'll play awfully. Caught, just saying it openly.
Yeah, he's kind of tilted as well, so it makes sense that they kind of got gapped towards the end.
Yeah, and he was schedule gap gets you, but hey, they got one win. Unlike Molly the Dog FC against Glue Factory, happening live at the same time. I think this was Luton's debut game, right? I think he actually made it in on the series.
He made it to the series. Yeah.
This is another one that just no one covered, no one reported the series. So everything I know about it is from like discussion around the game afterwards. I know that Luton was really happy with Damian Naruto. He's performing pretty well for a gold player. They have some level of communication that's like, hey, what are we doing here? Like they're still figuring out who's shot calling, how they're playing around it. But I mean, Damian Naruto puts up a 3-0. The whole team just absolutely smashes. And somehow, through some draft thing, Luton got Jinx both games. And Luton is like,
what?
He's like a Diamond 4 player. But on Jinx, he's like Diamond 2. And only on Jinx. And he gets it both games. I think it's the biggest.
Draft gap, GG.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know, man. The first game, I think, yeah, he's 7-3. Him and Sigil apparently linked up really, really well. Despite not being a bot lane that plays together pretty often. And then in the second game, his Jinx wasn't as oppressive, but still very, very useful. A quick 2-0. And big shout outs to Naki as well, playing incredibly. I don't know. Naki has always been a sleeper pick in my mind. I think a lot of people don't give him the credit he deserves as a mid laner.
He's really good in 5v5s, especially with the camps he plays and the bans that he gets and still performs on.
I'm stirring up the pot. Vibes, I'm creating drama right now. Pipa the Hound, formerly Geppetto. In the last tournament, you played a game and Luton, you were like a 14-3 Ezreal. And Luton made one comment about you being out of position one time, and you came into Twitch chat and you said, "Don't ever talk shit to me, you piss low. I'll dog walk you in any support that you play with, even if it's Pony. You always queue with her. And you loaded in against him, and he didn't have Pony, and Luton is like 75% of a player without Pony, and he dog walked you, bro. You can't go after him, say that stuff, and then show up to the game and get absolutely obliterated. That's all I have to say. I remembered it. I'm sure other people did too. Thank you, Epeps.
I don't think I have anything else to say about this series. This is kind of a stomp.
Yeah, I think
that's what you kind of expect out of this.
Washes goes so quickly, right? Like, how do you approach it? And then the next one is also a surprising wash to me, which is the World Orders versus Lacuna Matata. I think that, is the World Orders just a lot better than I think they are? I have them as like a pretty upper end of the middle of the pack teams, but a middle of the pack team.
I think that they're a lower of the pack team, but they've just been playing the kind of weak competition so far.
You think Lacuna is... I feel like Lacuna Matata is meant to be good.
I don't want to flame anybody, but I think that team doesn't have like any true carry on it.
Is Owen not the true carry?
He can be, but I feel like he's the only one that really can be. This is my issue with that team.
I do think that this is the series where Owen was playing Gangplank, I believe. Yes. And had a 2-0 lead, or maybe it was a 1-0. He had a lead, objectively, CS lead and kill lead, against Harbinger, formerly Harbinger 1.115, on the Alawi, and he just pulled up and solo killed him. No contest, full kit v full kit. That's my guy, Colby. He's been waiting around, tournament after tournament, waiting for us to lower the point requirements that he can rejoin, because he hasn't been in it since the first one. He gets in as a replacement and frags on the objectively highest elo top laner we have ever put into a tournament. And that's my boy. That's my GOAT. He's VLN 2.0. I'm telling you now.
Truly the GOAT, yeah. That Alawi was kind of scary.
And I'm telling you now, I'm going to ban it. I'm going to ban it if I ever have to play against him.
Fair enough.
I do think that we're waiting on Lacuna to show up for these series. No offense to Lacuna. I love him to death. I need to pay him more for the website. He talks about being a Diamond 2 level jungler, and I've seen it in the customs that we played and getting to know him. I don't think he has performed at that level in these games yet, especially considering that he wasn't against a necessarily or particularly high elo jungle in this series. I think the Fool is like a platinum peaker. I think he should be absolutely obliterating him. Especially on Wukong. That champion's OP right now.
I didn't actually get to watch these games, but just looking at this, looks like Edmund had a really good series when he came in.
Yeah, Edmund, I did get to watch this. I caught the tail end of this series. Edmonto is probably like, I think he's the most slept on ADC in the whole tournament. He does show up, and if these players don't know him and they don't know to ban the Kog'Maw, well, I guess I shouldn't leak it. We're commentating it. Ban the Kog'Maw, ban the Twitch, or ban the Smolder. He does kind of run rampant on people, and Balmer hasn't been having necessarily the best series either. I don't know if that's like ADC support synergy or just he's not online and awake for it yet, but Edmonto did kind of frag out. That's my GOAT as well. The first time I meet him, we're down in beers together, straight up. And then for the last series, rounding out week 1 in its entirety, that's 16 games that we talked about, was a quick 2-0 Mouth Breathers versus Summit Admins. I believe this was Mouth Breathers playing their absolute pinnacle roster, the best one that they can put together in regular season. And I think the games... This was a series... I shouldn't leak, but this was a series we had to talk about FFing for and why we don't allow it. Also, shout out Majin Hollow, the real captain of mouth breathers because Ricardo will not submit any of his documentation, and to the point that
I
we
gave I gave Majin Hollow captain just that way he would be able to do.
yeah, I saw. And when I said that, I was like, yeah, that makes sense. Someone has to let him be the captain, or this stuff's never gonna get done. So shout out Majin Hollow. But it was the Gumby Power show this series. Um, he got the Echo, which is one of his preferred champions. Absolutely obliterated the whole map, ran around it the whole time, just free killed everyone, never was even at a risk of dying. And the Yone the next game wasn't the big carry. Majin got really, really far, but also like just having an 8-1 Yone present in the game is scary.
This game was just like coughing baby versus hydrogen bomb.
this
It was a weak team with not a strong roster into the one of the better teams with their best roster.
I know
GG.
they subbed Riddy out in this series, but even Riddy didn't make the difference. I think in the Riddy series, OSHA Inspector, despite being a diamond jungler, is just so unexploitable. He plays it a very airtight game, even if it's not always winning. It's just the jungler can't force the other jungler to be useless against him.
Yeah.
And Riddy just got, countered by a Rammus pick. You know what I mean? I mean, you know Riddy more than I do. How do you think he's feeling in these teams?
Awful, horrible.
I,
I'm gonna be honest. I don't think he would want to play on a team where he's like the only big carry.
he's a mental block player. That's good to know.
I think if I remember, he's a little kind of like Hame, but he gets a little less tilted.
Is he also a child prodigy? He was saying the other day that
No,
he was younger
he's in
than
his.
Wasal.
I think he's in his mid-20s. I don't know.
Oh, for the record, guys, Wasal is 12 years old, child prodigy. So if he was younger, we were gonna have to have a talk. All right.
Yeah.
That's the conclusion of the match recaps. Current standings as reflected above. You can see it by pool. If you're 07 or Molly the dog, you are currently at risk of being eliminated. But of course, remember there's a lot of game left to play. And the same for Summit admins and Freaky Floppas. Based on the victory points, if you want to figure out how you can calculate your victory points, it's present in the rules. I think we've talked about it a little bit throughout the whole thing here. But I would actually like to go over team-based PR, where we have placed each team on a relative power scale to each other. And Evaps, I'm going to start with yours. So this is Evaps' team
right.
PV.
So I'm going to start from the bottom here. I think the D tier teams, them all being in the same group means that one of them is likely to get out. Most likely Lacuna's team, but I feel like they're the most likely to be the bottom teams, the first teams to get eliminated. I think Bronzina, I'm sorry, but you drafted not a great team. You only have one or two great players. C tier, I think teams that can make it in. I don't think they're gonna go far, but they can make like top 4. B, A, and S, I think all the teams B and B, A, and S, they can all win it all. I really enjoyed Mouth Breathers and AWB. I think they're the most likely to just randomly come out and win. I think Gumby will be able to coach his teammates to perform a little bit better, and I think that will give them a higher advantage than like the B or A tier teams. I still have 07 up here just because they've played a weaker roster week 2 and day 2, and they had a pretty good performance into AWB with their main roster.
And then do you have value in like left to right placement? Like is
Slightly. Towards the bottom, it doesn't really matter as much, but BA and S matters a little bit, yeah.
okay. I mean, I'm really sad to see V8 and C tier. You know, I think we're probably an S tier team, probably the best to ever do it. But I can't disagree. I don't think you have anyone that's particularly surprising in my opinion. Except, I don't know. I'm really surprised to see Group Therapy in B tier is the only thing I would say about this. I feel like they are, especially because they're practicing like every day, asking for scrims every day. I think they're like not even dark horse candidates to win. I think they're very high odds to be in top 4 and at least make playoffs.
The one thing I'll say is that Ilyas has been overperforming, I think, and if that guy doesn't perform as well as he does, I don't think they're as good of a team.
I mean, I guess that's
I,
fair. I can't argue with you on that one. You know what I mean?
I still think their team is very solid, though. I placed them low, but I think they could definitely get up to high A, low S by the end of next week.
I'm excited to see it. I really think that's the only one that has the potential to change out of all of them. From your PV, I think. I'm going to show you my chart so you can see how different they are, because I think we took a very vastly different approach. But this is my chart. So you'll notice I've kind of mid-stacked a lot of the teams. I do have a slight bias of like the further you are left, the more likely you are to like advance. So the teams are in order. But starting from the bottom, Freaky Floppas, I think they have great individual players. I think that team not having anyone who has ever been masters, like their highest is like a high diamond player, is like GG this season. I do think it was a bit of a draft diff by nature of where Bronzino was in the draft and then his prio picks. The team just doesn't have a carry that beats any other player in their own role. And then the same is true, I think, for Summit admins, with the exception of Riddy, where they got Riddy, a really, really high PV, probably the best jungler in the tournament. And then for the remainder of their drafts, they drafted friends who are good. They are good in their lane, but none of them are winners. And that's also why I put Legend of the Leg here in C tier. And for me, I think S tier are people I likely think will be in finals. A tier are teams I wouldn't be surprised if they were in finals. B tier is very much so dark horses. And then C tier is this like, man, I think the Legend of the Leg is actually a solid team. I really do. I think that they have a GM player with their mid laner who is not performing at a GM level. And I think that if they could find a way for Nico to enable and like join top tower in their jungle as well, they would definitely shoot up to A tier for me, but I'm just not seeing it yet. And then B tier is every team that I think is just going to be the teams that fill out the roster for finals. I kind of consider 8-cylinder, which is my team for the record, the kind of barrier for what makes a team good enough to even have a shot. And so every team above us, I think, will be the people you'll see contending for those final team slots. And then people below us are the ones I think more likely to be eliminated from each of their pools. I have mouth breathers low because I saw what happens when you put Tom 2 in a game with Gumby Power. And let me tell you, it's losing. It's a losing game. And so while I think they're really, really strong, I couldn't comfortably put them in A. And then A is 07, phenomenal team. One of the best starting rosters we have. Wizards of Wahoo, also a great starting roster. Practicing all the time, uniting together. I think WoW is pretty much equal to Nova Chrysalis in that matter. Team that's really, really strong, practicing all the time. And then Poro Pounders just have an objectively strong team that is working to get to know one each other's and just peak vibes. Just absolutely phenomenal vibes. I watched one of their scrims in full, and they were just hammering at the opponent, having a great time the whole time. So they're really, really good, really, really competitive, and having fun. And then you have AWB. I mean, I've talked about that roster all the time. Masters top laner, Grandmaster jungler, Grandmaster ADC. The only thing that balances it is Woof Woof mid. And group therapy is my call right now live. GCS Season 1 winner will be group therapy. That's my prediction. I've said it.
I'm actually going to do something kind of surprising. I think that for whatever reason, it's going to be the World Order versus AWB in the finals, and Wolf will win 3-1.
You think the world orders?
I have a feeling they're gonna somehow just BS their way all the way in. I don't know.
You might have just called the craziest prediction that if you're right, man, I would be surprised. No offense to the world orders. I think they are a competitive team. I think they're likely to beat my team. I don't think they're a finals contention team.
Mhm.
But, I mean, that's our team PR. We'll adjust them. This is kind of meant to focus more on like draft in this first week. Every week we'll try to account for the previous week as we upgrade them, move them up and down. But then the last thing is plays of the week. We had our montage come out. We had it come out to showcase some great plays and some great players, but I think some got missed that I personally liked because they weren't submitted to Dumpling. If you want your clips to be in the future clip shows, submit them to Dumpling. He'll pick the ones that he thinks are the best. But I'm going to show off some that are really, really cool. I'm going to start with mine, Evamps, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
So this is, and it is muted for the purposes of us talking over it. This is Top Tower proving that Set is probably the best champion to ever be added to League of Legends. The Skarner gets to pull in here, and it's just a perfect time up of the Showstopper with Lilting Lullaby from the Lilia, and Top Tower just runs rampant, just kind of objectively proving he is a top laner that is worth watching for this whole series. I mean, this was a perfectly neutral game up to this point. I think Leg had maybe 800 gold lead. And in one team fight, a well-timed set R into Lilia R, the game literally ends from this clip. We're going to watch it one more time on the loop. It's a pretty bad fight to start with. Like, they get blown up on the 4th first. A lot of CC utilized. They're actually getting flanked. It's a 4v5. And in one ult combo between Top Tower and I Fear Nobody, game is just changed. R into W. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
That ESO is really clean, yeah.
And like, it's just... When he locked Set, I'll tell you this, I had to mute this clip because I blow out my microphone yelling over it because it's a Set doing amazing. And then Evamps, for your clip, do you want to give the context
I have
for it?
the AWD versus HC the first game so far. So fun for and June starts the fight off with a 4-man Renata ult into the Wombo combo from Galio plus Ornn, just wiping 3-8. So it's not from a somewhat competitive game to no longer competitive after this game, I think.
Yeah, that's it's crazy that you're on running. I agree. June, and then the Ornn ult as well. I want to give a shout out to my tank top players. The Ornn ult goes crazy there. That team is lethal with their team fight coordination, I think. But yeah, Evamps, thank you so much for joining us for the first episode of Running the Gauntlet. I'm really excited.
Thank you for having.
For how this tournament goes out. Do you have anything you want to say to the people? Anything at all?
No.
Okay, thank you so much, Evamps. I think this is the best product we've ever put together. This tournament is the best we've ever ran. Thank you all so much for coming. We'll see you again next week. Goodbye.